Now, from the makers of cold water Omo...
In the Arabian room of QQF Incorporated, Ponsonby Hopkirk was instructing his client, Vincent East.
No, man. You're not putting enough into it. How can you get any satisfaction out of your fantasy unless you really believe in it? Now, think properly, murderously. Lift the camera gun a little higher. Oh, it's still not very good. You won't get anywhere unless you concentrate. Now, fix me with your eye and think. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him. Ah, much better. Much more realistic.
Vincent didn't even bother to look at Hopkirk. He crossed over to the table and picked up the top file.
QQF Incorporated. Fantasy number 3. Subject, the assassination of the Crown Prince of Bahrain. Ah, well, thank you, Mr. Hopkirk. Thank you for planning it all so nicely. Well, don't worry. I'll see that it's all carried out to the letter.
The Avengers.
John Steed and Emma Peel, The Avengers.
So many housewives have discovered that the cleaning power of cold water Omo gives them sparkling clean results. Mrs. Joyce Whelan of East London has this to say.
I've tried it, and it works beautifully. I tried it on my children's clothes, on the general wash, and I noticed straight away that things were cleaner. Since then, I've used nothing else but cold water Omo.
Once an Omo user, always an Omo user. Omo cleans best.
Keep your complexion soft and young-looking with the creamy, moisturizing lather of Lux. Like Claudia Cardinale, choose Lux. Lux, a beauty treatment as you bathe.
Episode 5 of this story, in which Emma Peel ponders over the assassination plot thought out by QQF, and John Steed gets to meet Prince Ali, the proposed victim of the fantasy game. John Steed and Emma Peel had held a council of war in Steed's apartment, trying to work out not who had committed 3 murders, but why. It wasn't until they'd pooled their knowledge regarding their separate visits to quite fantastic Inc. that they suddenly had an idea. The Crown Prince Ali of Bahrain was visiting Britain, and strict security precautions were being taken to protect him. Emma Peel remembered that Hopkirk of QQF had told her he's often had the task of planning several fantasy assassinations for the relief of tension of several of his clients. Steed and Mrs. Peel had looked at each other, and without saying a word, agreed it was time to pay another visit to Mr. Ponsonby Hopkirk. They made good time to number 10 Beaver Street, but by the time they got into the Arabian room, Vincent had gone, and Hopkirk lay on the floor, dying.
Gently now, gently. Fantastic. Quite fantastic.
Steed, look at this file on the table. QQF Fantasy number 3. Subject, the assassination of Crown Prince Ali of Bahrain. And the file is empty.
Hopkirk. No good.
Hopkirk, this fantasy, the murder of Prince Ali. Now, when's it to take place?
Tomorrow. Tomorrow night.
But how, Hopkirk? How? I've got to stop it. Tell me how.
Too late. The plan's been taken. It's already underway. It's too late to stop it now. Just too late.
Back in Steed's apartment, Steed mixed a hefty drink. You're getting as bad as Mother, Steed.
Cheers, Steed.
Cheers. Although at the moment there's really not much to cheer about, is there, Mrs. Peel? What are we going to do?
Well, why don't you just go to the Crown Prince and tell him there's going to be an attempt on his life tomorrow?
Oh, I can't do that.
Well, it seems simple enough.
Well, look what it says here in the newspaper. You know why he's come over here?
To sign over the oil concessions in our favour.
Exactly. In return for which we will give his country full military protection.
Well?
Well, what faith will he have in our military protection if we admit that we can't protect him, one man, right here in our own country?
Oh, point taken, Steed.
It could ruin the whole deal. He'd take his business elsewhere. No, we'll have to be more subtle. Think something out.
I wonder what Hotker planned. Steve, do you think the killer will use a gun?
Gun, knife. Yes, remember that ornamental dagger? It does all seem to fit in.
Or poison.
Why poison?
Well, I was thinking about those wretched jars of honey. They've got to fit in somewhere, too. They're important somehow.
Well, whatever method the would-be murderer employs, he's got to get close enough to use it.
And one thing's certain. Prince Ali won't step outside the embassy once he's in there.
I agree. That means the killer's got to be smuggled in. Well, that's it, the major difficulty. He has got to get into the embassy somehow. And so have I.
The reception hall of the Bahrainian embassy is large, opulent, and beautifully furnished in a Middle Eastern style. A gong crashed out. Along the corridor hurried a large man wearing traditional Arab robes. He approached a dais in the hall and prostrated himself on a large cushion.
I crave pardon for this intrusion, Your Majesty.
And what is it, Grand Vizier?
An effendi from the British government, most high and gracious one. He begs to be admitted to your most high, illustrious presence.
Is he to be trusted?
His credentials have been checked once, twice, thrice times over, O High One. His person has been searched for offensive weapons. I, who am only a speck upon the camel's back, a lowly, ignorant toad in all-seeing eyes, think he can be trusted.
Then admit him.
At once, Master of Wisdom, with all speed.
The vizier waddled out and whispered to John Steed.
You enter with the head bowed. Do not speak until His Highness addresses you. Advance with head bowed.
Steed nodded and was ushered into the presence.
Effendi Steed, Your Majesty.
Now, what is your business, Mr. Steed?
A social call, Your Highness. I'm with the Ministry of Eastern Affairs. We merely wish to ensure that Your Majesty is enjoying his stay in this country.
Thank you. You may gaze upon the royal features.
Steed raised his head and looked at an extremely nice-looking young fellow of 30, boyishly handsome, dressed in flowing robes and traditional headcloth.
On behalf of my peoples and my country, I, Ali Belshazzar Moham Gabar, Crown Prince of Bahrain, defender of the faith, soother of all souls, lighter of dark corners, maker of men's destiny, fountain of wisdom, welcome thee. Vizier, you may retire.
Yes, so great one.
The vizier backed carefully through the curtains. The prince got up from the dais and said,
That's got rid of him, thank heavens. Do you play cricket, Mr. Steed?
Oh, well, yes, I do, but...
Bowler or batsman?
Well, a bit of an all-rounder, Your Majesty.
Oh,
but...
jolly good.
The prince tossed aside his traditional robes and appeared dressed as an ordinary young Englishman in white slacks and an open-necked shirt.
Henry?
Your Highness.
The guard at the door snapped to attention.
Set up the wicket and get over to the far door to keep an eye out for the jolly old Grand Vizier. He's one of the old school, you know, Mr. Steed. Bit of a stickler for tradition.
The prince reached behind the throne and produced a cricket bat and ball.
Harold, Herbert, take up fielding positions.
2 guards leapt forward at the command. The prince tossed the ball to Steed and took his place at the wicket.
Right. Send him down good and fast, Steed. Come on, that's a royal command from the Fountain of Wisdom and all that stuff.
Oh, very well, Your Highness.
Steed shrugged his shoulders, paced away to the end of the hall, and started to bowl.
That's the style. Keep 'em coming, keep 'em coming.
While Steed was playing cricket with the Crown Prince, Mr. Arkady, the curiously healthy Turkish gentleman, was in the health centre again. He was lying on a slab under a sun-ray lamp and wearing nothing but dark glasses. Vincent entered.
I have been reading the QQF's plan. I have no doubt that if we follow the instructions as laid down, you will penetrate the security of the Bahrainian embassy, and it will all work out very smoothly. The Hop clerk certainly knows his business.
Knew his business?
Quite. As you say, knew. Are you ready to go?
Yes, Mr. Arcady. I've overlooked nothing, except the payoff.
Arcady regarded him distastefully through his dark glasses and picked up a towel. He unrolled it and revealed a pile of notes. Vincent picked up the pile eagerly, then reacted amazed. The notes had been neatly cut in halves. Arcady gently retained one half with an elegant finger.
A half now, and the other half when the job is done. Those were the agreed terms.
Yes, but when you said half, I thought you meant... I expected half the amount. Not...
We must try to trust one another, my dear Vincent. We really must. Now, take your time about the job. A sure aim. And one nice big bang.
John Steed had to admit that Prince Ali was a far better batsman than he was a bowler.
Yeah, I think a break for tea is clearly indicated. You would like some tea, Mr. Steed?
Oh, thank you, Your Highness. Yes, I would.
You summoned, great and high one.
I certainly did. Tea, Vizier, for myself and my guests.
Instantly, Your Highness.
The Vizier clapped his fleshy hands, and instantly the curtains parted. Two heavily veiled harem girls appeared through the drapes, carrying trays of tea and various things to eat.
Well, I've heard of instant refreshments, but that really is service.
We don't stand any laxity, you know, Steve. These are a couple of my wives, by the way.
Right.
Number 4 and number... let's take a closer look at... number 33. Charming girl. Cost me a bag of salt and 4 goats. I got lots more out the back.
Goats?
Wives. Matter of status, you see, having a lot of them. Vizier, how many wives at the last count?
239, Your Mighty One.
I should think you'd have to be mighty, too, with that lot.
I see your eyes flashing at the prospect, Mr. Steed. But did you stop to consider that a man with 239 wives also acquires 239 mothers-in-law,
That's a very sobering thought.
Well, then, here are hot scones. What would you like with them? A little goat's cream? Papyrus jelly?
You haven't had any honey, have you?
Honey? I loathe the stuff. Vizier, honey for Mr. Steed. And make sure you taste everything on the trays before we eat. I'm sorry to insist on this, Mr. Steed, but you see, so many people want to kill me. Would you believe that?
Your dog gives you a lot of pleasure. Now here's something you must do for him. Give him all new Procos health food for dogs. It's complete. New Procos contains all the energy-giving vitamins and protein a healthy dog needs. So with New Procos, you need feed him nothing else. New Procos health food is all he needs. Care for your dog. Give him New Procos health food for dogs. It's complete, and he'll love it.
No dirt can stand up to the cleaning power of cold water Omo. Mrs. Whelan had to wash greasy overalls.
And I thought, oh, well, I won't worry. I'll stick it into cold water Omo. And sure enough, every bit of grease is out.
Once an Omo user, always an Omo user.
The Avengers.
Listen every evening, Monday to Friday, to John Steed and Emma Peel, The Avengers, brought to you by the makers of Cold Water Omo. Now, from the makers of Cold Water Omo...
The Grand Vizier clapped his fleshy hands, and instantly the curtains parted. Two heavily veiled harem girls appeared through the drapes, carrying trays of tea and various things to eat.
Now, that really is service.
Oh, we don't stand any laxity here, Mr. Steed. These are a couple of my wives, by the way. Number 4 and number 33. Oh, number 33 is a charming girl. Cost me a bag of salt and 4 goats. And, Vizier, how many wives at the last count?
239, your mighty one.
I see your eyes flash at the prospect, Steed, eh? But remember, that means 239 mothers-in-law also.
A very sobering thought.
Ah. Well, now, tea. Here are hot scones. What would you like with them?
You haven't any honey, have you?
Honey? Loathe the stuff. Vizier, honey for Mr. Steed. And make sure that you taste everything on the trays before we eat. I'm sorry to insist on this, Mr. Steed, but you see, there are so many people who want to kill me. Would you believe it?
Sparkling clean results. Mrs. Joyce Whelan of East London has this to say.
I've tried it, and it works beautifully. I tried it on my children's clothes, on the general wash, and I noticed straight away that things were cleaner. Since then, I've used nothing else but cold water Omo.
Once an Omo user, always an Omo user. Omo cleans best.
Keep your complexion soft and young-looking with the creamy, moisturizing lather of Lux. Like Claudia Cardinale, choose Lux. Lux, a beauty treatment as you bathe.
Episode 6 of this story, in which John Steed gets Emma Peel into the Bahrainian embassy, where she becomes very much involved in the intricacies of the fantasy game. John Steed had managed to obtain the necessary credentials to get him into the Bahrainian embassy. There, the atmosphere of strictly orthodox Arabian behavior had been shattered when Crown Prince Ali, a personable young man with an English accent, had insisted on playing cricket in the large reception hall. Steed was finding the visit extremely pleasant, and when tea was served, he noted that the security precautions covered death by poisoning.
Right, Vizier. I shall have a little of that, 2 of those, a cup of lemon tea, and some gooseberry jam on one of the hot scones.
Yes, Your Highness.
Well, hurry up and taste the lot.
Immediately, O great and powerful one.
The great and powerful one is also the hungry one.
Steed watched with interest as the Grand Vizier moved round the trays, sipping tea and crunching biscuits, sucking a spoonful of gooseberry jam.
No discomfort?
None, Your Majesty.
Not even the slightest twinge?
No, O gracious one. The food is pure enough for the devourer of evil to consume.
The devourer of evil has no wish to devour evil. That's the whole point of the exercise. The Grand Vizier tastes everything for me, Mr. Steed.
So I observe.
There's always some nut trying to pop me off. Have to be extremely careful. Why, only last year we discovered that 2 of my cooks were members of the Pale Mauve May movement.
Oh, indeed. What steps did you take?
Oh, I liberated them for good. But come, Mr. Steed, what about you? Tea?
Thank you, yes. 2 lumps.
But you haven't got your honey.
Well, it really isn't important. I think I'd prefer the gooseberry jam. Please don't bother. This looks fine. You say you loathe honey, Your Highness.
Oh, can't bear it. Never touch it. Far too sweet for my taste. My wives, though, they love it. All of them.
Ah, is that so?
Yes, yes. No idea how much they eat. 239 tummies to fill is a devil of a lot. Had to order loads of honey while I'm here.
Ah, and you order best British honey, of course.
Of course.
From B. Bumble and Company, of course?
Of course. Yes, that's right. 40 jars of the stuff. A whole truckload.
I see. 40 jars? 1 truckload?
Oh, they weren't small jars like the gooseberry jam. They were special, prince-sized jars. More like the ones round the walls.
The prince indicated with a wave of his hand an enormous Ali Baba-type jar standing in the corner.
40 man-sized jars. May I see them?
Impossible. They're all in there.
Again, the prince gestured with an elegant wave of his hand, this time towards a draped doorway flanked by burly guards. Steed got to his feet.
Well, surely your Highness won't mind if I have a quick look.
But as Steed moved forward, the 2 guards at the entrance jumped to attention and slammed their scimitars across the doorway, barring the entrance.
You can't go in there, Steed. No man can, except me. That is my harem.
Shortly Shortly after this, Steed admitted defeat and went home. Mrs. Peel was waiting for him. He outlined his ideas to her.
Well, it's clear enough, Mrs. Peel. It's the old Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves plot again. It's a typical Ponsonby Hopkirk fantasy. He was always kinky about the Arabian Nights. This one's right up his street.
Could be.
I'm sure of it.
Well, what do we do now?
Well, I bought you a present. Would you like to try it on?
Steed reached into his coat pocket and withdrew an Eastern yashmak. He held it over the lower half of Mrs. Peel's face.
Yes. Oh, it suits you.
No, Steed.
Brings out the colour of your eyes.
I said no.
But, Mrs. Peel, only a woman has any hope of getting into the prince's harem.
I absolutely and positively refuse.
Now, look, that's where the killer is hiding, I'm sure of it. It's the QQF-suggested fantasy plot. The assassin is concealed in one of those 40 jars. The rest are all honey, but one has a killer concealed in it. Now, look, I can't get in there, and you can.
No, Steed. I'm not joining anyone's harem.
The prince is quite good-looking, young, attractive, and rich.
I don't care if he's Paul Newman. The answer's still no.
Well, but if Prince Ali is murdered and you have to go through the rest of your life thinking, if only I had agreed to help.
Now, see, that's not fair. That's blackmail, and I... All right. Tell me the worst.
Well, the prince has invited me to dinner tonight.
And you are taking another guest along?
Well, not a guest, exactly. Tell me, Mrs. Peel, what size do you take in puff trousers?
Later that day, in the health centre, Arkady, the Turk, had finished bathing and was dressing for dinner. His manservant was helping him into a large corset, lacing it around Arkady's middle.
Oh, no. The last lace hole. Try now.
Yes, sir. I not wish to hurt you.
Oh, when I say go. Oh, that is it. Oh, it's very good.
Very good. Very slim. Very beautiful.
Thank you. I think so, too. Yeah, the cummerbund.
The pistol in the cummerbund, sir.
No, I regret. I will be unable to smuggle it in. The search will be rigorous. That's it. Now, the coat?
Yes, sir.
That is good. I must hurry now. It will not do to be late for the prince's dinner party. His first dinner party. And his last. Vincent will see to that. Yes, it should be quite a night. Quite a night.
The reception hall at the Bahrainian embassy had been prepared for a sumptuous feast. The prince, clad in resplendent ceremonial robes, was seated on a cushion at the head of the feast. John Steed, in black tie, was seated next to him. The Grand Vizier was kept busy introducing the guests.
I'm extremely flattered to be asked to your dinner party and be allowed such a place of honor, Your Highness.
It's my pleasure, old boy. I haven't met anyone in this country who bowls leg breaks as well as you do. These things are important, you know.
Don't you think so? Has the Grand Vizier tasted all this food?
Well, of course.
No wonder he's putting on weight.
Allow me to offer you this delicacy. Mountain rat's tails in aspic.
Well, actually, I'm trying to give them up. A habit forming.
Your Highness, you may be allowed to present my compliments.
Arkady, nice to see you again.
Oh, it was most gracious of you to invite me, sir. I trust Your Highness is in excellent health.
Indeed I am. Oh, Mr. Steed, may I present Mr. Arkady?
Mr. Steed, I'm delighted to know.
Mr. Steed is a rival of yours, Arkady. He's from the British government.
Oh, then congratulations. You beat us to it.
Oh?
The oil concessions.
My country hopes to obtain them in exchange for our military protection.
Oh, I understand. Your Highness, as this feast seems to have satisfied the inner man, might I be allowed to provide a little entertainment to follow it?
Oh, by all means, Mr. Steed. Be seated, Arkady. Continue, Mr. Steed.
Thank you. Very well.
Steed rose and made a gesture to one of the guards, who struck the gong.
Your Highness, with your permission, may I present to you and your guests the Star of the East, Emma.
The curtains parted, and Mrs. Peel, heavily veiled and dressed as a harem dancer, snaked into the room to the accompaniment of suitable music. The prince leaned forward with interest as Mrs. Peel began to dance, removing one veil after another. After 4 down and 3 to go, Steed muttered,
Not bad, Mrs. Peel.
Not bad? She's splendid. I am pleased. Well pleased.
The prince leaned forward and licked his lips as the dance ended.
6 veils. I counted only 6 veils. There's still one more.
Well, she was poorly educated, alas, she cannot count.
I would speak to this woman.
Oh, certainly. Emma, over here, please.
Yes, master.
What you say? We don't want to offend the offender.
Mrs. Peel stepped forward. The prince gestured to his side. Mrs. Peel sat down between him and Steed.
A shy one, eh? Not much to say.
Retarded. Definitely retarded.
Mrs. Peel shot Steed a look over her yashmak that made the death of 1,000 knives appear a compliment.
I offer 12 goats for this woman. It's a great deal to offer, but I have taken a fancy to her. I will buy her from you.
Yeah, but Your Highness, I couldn't possibly. I mean...
It seems, Your Highness, that the British have no respect for your wishes. Now, if it were my government that were so requested...
I was about to say that I couldn't possibly accept anything. No, goats, not even the smallest nanny. If you like her, she's yours. I give her to you. You can put her into your harem at any time.
Steed is a 5-letter word.
And with a vicious uppercut, Jimmy Anderson finishes trimming his whole hedge in just 3 hours, 11 minutes. Great work, Jimmy. Do you play any other sport?
Yes, dominoes.
You're looking pretty cool, Jimmy. What deodorant do you use?
Shield for Sportsmen, of course.
Why?
It works.
Shield for Sportsmen deodorant won't stick, sting, or stain. In aerosol or roll-on, it's made to keep sportsmen cool and dry. Think what it can do for you.
Once an Omo user, always an Omo user, like Mrs. Bodington.
My wash is beautiful, and I'm very proud of it. There's nothing like cold water Omo.
No dirt can stand up to Omo. Over 1 million housewives have proved it. It cleans best.
The Avengers.
Listen every evening, Monday to Friday, to John Steed and Emma Peel, The Avengers, brought to you by the makers of Cold Water Omo. Now, from the makers of Cold Water Omo...
The applause that rang through the reception room of the Bahrainian embassy was for Mrs. Peel, who had just completed the dance of the 7 veils for the Crown Prince, Ali. Well, she'd completed as much of it as she was going to.
6 veils? I only counted 6 veils. There's still one more.
Oh, she was poorly educated, Your Highness. Alas, she cannot count.
I would speak to this woman.
Oh, certainly. Emma! Over here, please.
Yes, master.
What you say? We don't want to offend the offended.
Mrs. Peel stepped forward, and in response to the prince's gesture, sank onto a cushion. There was an awkward silence.
She is a shy one. Not much to say.
Retarded. Definitely retarded.
But I've taken a great fancy to her. I will buy her from you. I offer 12 goats for this woman.
Oh, but Your Highness, I couldn't possibly.
It seems, Your Highness, that the British have no respect for your wishes. Now, if it were my government that was so requested...
I was about to say that I couldn't possibly accept anything. No goats, no, not a thing. No, if you like her, she's yours. I give her to you. You can put her into your harem at any time.
Ah, it is agreed then. Vizier?
Oh, great one, I am here.
Take her. Go with him, woman. I shall be along later.
From Coldwater Omo, like Mrs. Connie Goldie of Vereeniging.
Well, I found myself without any hot water one Monday morning. Yes. So I dashed out and I bought a packet of cold water Omo. And I've never been without cold water Omo since.
Yes, once an Omo user, always an Omo user. Omo cleans best. Over 1 million South African housewives have proved it.
To keep your complexion soft and smooth, choose Lux with its creamy, moisturizing lather and precious perfume. Lux, a beauty treatment as you bathe.
Episode 7, the final episode of this story, in which John Steed and Emma Peel manage to arrange an effective, if rather noisy, end to the fantasy game. John Steed had discovered the method to be used in the attempt upon the life of Crown Prince Ali of Bahrain. The late Mr. Ponsonby Hopkirk of QQF Inc. had worked it all out. The plan was based on the famous story of Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. The killer was to be smuggled into the Bahrainian embassy in a large honey jar. 40 of these jars had been delivered and deposited in the prince's harem. One of them contained the assassin. As no man other than the prince was allowed into the harem, Steed had coerced and tricked Mrs. Peel into joining the prince's 130-odd wives. Mrs. Peel, thrust through the door of the harem, wasn't very pleased with John Steed.
If I ever get my talons on Steed, he's going to have scars to show for quite some time. So this is how they do it, do they?
Mrs. Peel walked down what was virtually a corridor of little draped cubicles. Above these cubicles were small, tastefully engraved plaques.
Sharon? Mona? Ruth? Oh, dear. All we need to come across now is a duty roster.
Mrs. Peel walked the length of the corridor and, opening another small door, found herself in a large storeroom.
Storeroom. This is more like it. Ah, large ornamental jars.
Approaching the jars cautiously, Mrs. Peel inspected them.
Bumble's best honey keeps your strength up. Well, let's see what it contains. Honey, all right. Well, if there's a man hidden in there, I don't fancy his chances. 1 down, 39 to go.
In the main reception hall, the dinner party was over. The guests had left, and only John Steed and Arcady were seated on cushions near the prince. Steed was working hard.
Oh, very amusing, Mr. Steed. Very amusing, old boy.
Another drink, Your Highness, and please tell me more about your camels.
I fear we are detaining, Your Highness. Your Highness must be extremely tired. Your first reception, you must be anxious to retire.
Oh, yes, as a matter of fact...
Come, the evening is young, and all this is so entertaining.
There is entertainment and... entertainment, Steed, eh?
Yes, well, before we take our leave, may I be allowed to offer Your Highness a small gift?
Steed produced a small portable tape recording machine and placed it next to the prince.
Just press the button, Your Highness.
Oh, like this?
Strokes it into the covers, and Karoo feels there's no run.
Ah, cricket.
216 for 5. Cricket. 80 runs behind. And... Gibbs again, into bowl to close.
It's a full commentary of the last test match.
That is kind, most kind. We're pleased to accept, Mr. Steed. Do you play cricket, Mr. Arcady?
No, alas, no, I don't.
Oh, it's the most pleasant of games.
Actually, this is a double tape. You press this button on the other side, and it plays the second track, like this. It's specially recorded for you, Your Highness.
Oh, very nice. Makes me quite homesick.
But you carry your home with you wherever you go, Your Highness. Your whole entourage awaits you.
Oh, yes, you are right, Arcady.
The prince switched off the recorder and yawned once again.
I fear you're right, Arcady. I am rather tired.
In that case, we ask permission to withdraw.
Yes. I think I'll cut along now.
But this excellent liqueur isn't half finished yet.
Oh, no need for you to rush off. The two of you can stay and get better acquainted. It's been a very pleasant evening. Thanks.
The prince made for the door of his harem. Steed moved after him.
But Your Majesty,
Stay! The prince disappeared inside. The door closed. The guards barred Steed's way with crossed scimitars. You're on your own now, Mrs. Peel. At that particular moment, Mrs. Peel, having worked her way through inspecting half the stone jars, was searching yet another.
Empty. So Steed was right. Let's see. Yes, breathing holes drilled into the earthenware. So the killer is in the harem. Loose. In here at the moment, but where?
Emma, little star of the east.
Oh, no. Now for it.
Your prince is here. Your prince is here.
If the assassin's waiting, he couldn't be given a better chance.
Prince is waiting. Princey's waiting for his Emma. Princey Wincy's coming to get you.
Oh, Princey Wincy will get a sick ear if he tries anything on.
Mrs. Peel ducked into one of the cubicles, one that bore the name Miffy, number 238. The harem girl lay back on a lace coverlet. She was bound and gagged.
So he's around here somewhere.
Emma, my patience is running thin. Show yourself, woman. That is the command.
Mrs. Peel stepped out into the corridor.
Emma, my eastern star.
The prince held out his arms. Mrs. Peel, looking beyond him, saw an arm stretched out from the drapes of another cubicle. She rushed forward, knocking the prince flying. Mrs. Peel grabbed at the gun arm and yanked Vincent out into the corridor like a ball from a cannon. She hurled him into the stone jars. Mrs. Peel, following through, rushing after Vincent. The prince picked himself up and watched in horrified amazement as Vincent snatched a scimitar from the wall.
Right. It's about time I settle things with you once and for all.
Vincent advanced on the helpless Mrs. Peel. Mrs. Peel kicked a honey jar over and rolled it at him. It tripped Vincent and gave Mrs. Peel time to snatch another scimitar from the wall. They fought. The prince winced as Vincent slashed out at Mrs. Peel. Mrs. Peel sidestepped and gave a powerful sweep with her scimitar. It crashed into Vincent's, knocking it from his hand. Mrs. Peel stepped forward and, placing the point of her sword at Vincent's throat, forced him back against the stone wall.
Right. Start talking. Who's behind all this? Come on, talk.
It was Arcady. Arcady's idea. Arcady's the man you want.
Say that louder. Loud enough for everyone to hear. Come on.
Steed and Arcady were still in the reception room. They'd heard the terrific noise from within the harem, and then the voice.
It was Arcady. Arcady's the man you want. He planned to kill the prince. I'll prove it.
Steed looked at Arcady, who made for the exit. Steed grabbed him.
No, you don't.
Steed got hold of Arcady's evening jacket by the sleeves. Arcady merely slipped out of the coat and legged it for the exit just as Mrs. Peel, having stopped only to lay out Vincent with the flat of her scimitar, appeared from the harem.
Steed? Steed, where's Arcady?
Gone. There's no great rush. I know where to find him. Look at this appointment slip in his pocket. Read it.
QQF Inc., fantasy number 4, subject, escape of Arcady from pursuing agents. Come on.
My friend, I don't know what this is all about, but clearly you've saved my life. Anything I have is yours. My jewels, my horses.
No, really.
My favorite wife.
Oh, well, in that case...
Oh, come on, Steed. You can't have me and a favorite wife.
In the QQF, Arcady ransacked the drawers of the desks and searched all the filing cabinets, spilling papers all over the place. Eventually, he found what he was looking for.
A forged passport and an airplane ticket just in time.
Just too late.
What?
Arcady swung round, gun at the ready, but Mrs. Peel, who was standing quite close, holding the trick Aladdin's lamp, merely smiled sweetly and gave the lamp a rub. Arcady recoiled with surprise, and through the smoke haze, John Steed appeared with his umbrella. He swung it up quite high and brought it down on the back of Arcady's neck.
Nicely timed, Steed. You were...
Mrs. Peel broke off, peered through the haze. Steed had disappeared. Mrs. Peel looked down at the floor. There was a pause. And then the sound of Steed's umbrella banging beneath.
Hey, Mrs. Peel, get me out of here! Get me out of here!
quite fantastic.
Some days later, sitting on the carpet in Steed's apartment.
Well, Prince Ali signed the oil treaty.
It's amazing. After all, we didn't succeed in keeping the murder attempt from him, did we?
Yes, the top brass weren't too pleased about it, actually. We got a firm lecture.
Oh, well. It was bound to happen someday. I always knew we'd end up on the carpet.
Ah, but if you're with me, it's always a magic carpet, Mrs. Peel. Goat's milk or champagne?
Pepsodent has Earlium, an amazing discovery that actually polishes teeth so sparkling clean and white, dulling film can't find a hole. Feel the difference with your tongue.
You wonder where the dawn is wet when you polish your teeth with Pepsodent.
New Pepsodent, the white toothpaste you can feel working.
Pepsodent, Pepsodent, Pepsodent.
The Avengers.
Listen every evening, Monday to Friday, to John Steed and Emma Peel, The Avengers, brought to you by the makers of Cold Water Omo.